Welcome to Life Stories, where the people you overlook today might just be the ones who rewrite the rules tomorrow. What if I told you the woman scrubbing the floor in a five-star hotel lobby speaks 6 languages fluently, holds an honors degree from NYU, and once published research that shaped global policy, but no one ever asked her name? In a world obsessed with resumes, how do so many brilliant lives get reduced to uniforms, silence, and not a cultural fit? Today's story isn't just about injustice. It's about what happens when someone finally dares to speak in a language no one expected and cracks open the foundation of an entire empire. And by the time the truth comes out, it's already too late to stop her. Let me take you to the moment it all began, with one phone call in a language almost no one understood. The call came at 10:42 a.m. on a Thursday. An ordinary Thursday, where Chloe Bennett, age 29, scrubbed marble floors beneath chandeliers worth more than her annual salary. The Empire Grand Hotel in Manhattan glittered with opulence, its lobby smelling faintly of citrus polish and money. Chloe's back ached from crouching too long, her knees sore from years of bending before the indifferent shine of privilege. She was invisible in her gray housekeeping uniform, her natural curls tied into a bun tucked beneath a cap. But her mind? That was anything but invisible. When her phone buzzed in her apron pocket, Chloe froze. Answering it would violate Manager Simmons' rule number 1, no phones during working hours, especially not in common areas. But then she saw the caller ID. University of Amsterdam, Depth of Applied Linguistics. Her breath hitched. 6 applications. 6 rejections. She had almost given up. Chloe ducked behind one of the towering marble columns, her heart pounding. "Bennett," she whispered. A voice, crisp and warm, answered in flawless Dutch. Professor Meyer. He'd reviewed her revised application and had one question about her letter of motivation. Chloe's reply slipped out effortlessly in Dutch, her cadence elegant, the grammar perfect. But the professor wasn't the only one listening. When she glanced up mid-conversation, Chloe's stomach dropped. Standing just feet away was Lucas Warren, CEO and owner of the Hotel Empire. And beside him, Karen Simmons, her icy supervisor whose gaze burned holes through Chloe's skin. Chloe ended the call. "Ik bel je later terug," she said softly, voice trembling. "Bennett, my office. Now," Simmons snapped. The hallway to the staff elevator suddenly felt a mile long. She passed colleagues who pretended not to see her, but their eyes lingered, some with pity, some with smug satisfaction. Simmons' office in the basement was small, cold, and smelled faintly of mildew. "You know the rules," Simmons barked as soon as the door shut. "No phones, no hiding, and certainly no whatever language that was." "Dutch," Chloe said before she could stop herself. "I don't care if it was Elvish," Simmons spat. "You embarrassed this hotel. Mr. Warren saw you slacking off in the lobby like some street vendor." The hypocrisy was suffocating. The receptionists took personal calls all the time. Chloe had once seen one of them FaceTiming her boyfriend during check-in. But Chloe was different. Always had been. "You're being reassigned to the convention center restrooms, 3-month rotation, no overtime. Be grateful you're not fired." That night, in the tiny 2-bedroom apartment she shared with 2 ER nurses in Queens, Chloe sat staring at her degree from NYU, framed above the peeling radiator. A magna cum laude in linguistics, 6 international certifications, 6 years cleaning rooms while other resumes, pale, polished, and privileged, floated to the top. The next morning, she reported early, uniform crisp, expression neutral. She didn't cry. Not anymore. When the front desk phone rang and the receptionist called out, "Chloe Bennett, Human Resources wants to see you," she didn't flinch. HR was on the 39th floor, another world entirely. Chloe had never been there. She stood in the back of the executive elevator, flanked by men in suits discussing acquisitions like chess matches. No one noticed the cleaner among them, but someone had. "Miss Bennett," the HR director said, ushering her into a minimalist office. "Mr. Warren would like to see you. Personally." Lucas Warren's office was larger than her apartment and bathed in morning light. The man himself, mid-40s, sharp suit, unnerving composure, sat behind a walnut desk and flipping through a file. 6 languages, he said without looking up, including Mandarin and Dutch. Chloe nodded, confused. NYU honors graduate. Applied for our international relations department 12 times. Her chest tightened. I asked HR to pull your file the moment I heard you speaking Dutch yesterday, Warren said. Tell me something, Miss Bennett. Why have you been cleaning hotel bathrooms for 6 years? Chloe's throat felt dry. I sent 47 applications, all ignored. Every internal request blocked, mostly by Manager Simmons and Director Blake. Lucas didn't flinch, but a muscle in his jaw twitched. Blake complains weekly about the shortage of multilingual staff, especially for our Asia-Pacific clients. He stood, walked to the window. Tomorrow we host a high-level Dutch-Chinese conference. I need someone fluent, fast-thinking, culturally sharp. You want me to clean their rooms? She said flatly. He turned. I want you to be our temporary international relations coordinator, $5,000 a week, starting today. The silence between them was sharp as glass. Chloe blinked. Why me? Because I heard what the rest of this place refused to see. An hour later, she stepped into the elevator, no longer in uniform, badge clipped to a tailored blazer. When the doors opened onto the executive floor, Karen Simmons nearly dropped her clipboard. Miss Bennett, you're not authorized. I am now, Chloe said, voice even. International Relations Coordinator, at Mr. Warren's request. Karen paled. You don't have the qualifications. NYU, 6 languages. My resume has been on file for 6 years. Apparently, you just never looked. As Chloe turned the corner, she heard her name whispered behind her. But this time, it wasn't out of pity. In the VIP conference prep room, she found the documents for the opening session and froze. The Mandarin translations were off, badly. A casual misstep in Western terms, but deeply insulting in formal Chinese. Chloe corrected them instinctively, adjusting tone, honorifics, syntax. How did you know? Warren asked quietly, having watched from the doorway. Whoever wrote this knows Mandarin vocabulary, not etiquette. That's a dangerous gap. Warren nodded. Director Blake swore he hired a certified translator. Chloe pointed to a critical line. That sentence implies the Chinese delegation is subordinate. You don't say that to billionaires. He stared at the page for a long moment. Can you prove this? I can prove everything. Have you ever been overlooked despite your qualifications? How would it feel to finally be seen, not just as competent, but as extraordinary? But Chloe was about to discover that being seen is one thing, being believed is another, and some secrets inside the Empire Grand go deeper than marble and gold. The first day of the conference unfolded like a high-stakes opera. Chloe moved through the Empire Grand with unshakable poise, translating seamlessly between Mandarin and Dutch, shifting between diplomatic nuance and corporate speed. Executives leaned in when she spoke. Deals that would have taken days were inked in hours. Behind every handshake and exchanged business card, she could feel Lucas Warren's watchful gaze, assessing not just her performance, but something deeper. Her clarity under pressure, her fluency in more than just language. But as the day neared its end, Chloe's instincts prickled. She caught sight of Thomas Blake, the same director of operations who had rejected every one of her applications, ushering a young woman through the glass doors of the 39th floor. The girl looked barely 22, pale with nervous energy and clutching a manila folder labeled Translation, Final Contract Draft. Blake's voice floated behind them, too casual to be harmless. Ashley, your Mandarin's fine. Don't worry about it. Chloe Bennett doesn't make the calls around here. Ashley. Chloe knew the name. The same last name Blake signed on every internal translation contract for years. The same certified translator who had repeatedly misused Mandarin honorifics in key business proposals. The niece. Chloe didn't wait. She snapped a photo of the folder's cover, text half exposed, and bolted for Warren's office. He looked up from his desk, brow furrowed. Chloe? She's here. Blake's niece, carrying contract translations, final versions. They're flawed. Again. I checked. It's the same errors, the same tone-deaf phrases. She hesitated, then reached into her bag and pulled out a folder of her own. I've been keeping records, cross-referencing contracts, cost estimates, rejected internal applicants. All of it points to Blake and Simmons systematically blocking qualified staff, especially people of color. Lucas Warren stared at the documents in silence, his eyes narrowing. You're sure? I have screenshots, emails, timestamps, and now she's replacing my corrections with the same garbage that could derail the entire deal tomorrow. As if on cue, Maya Fields from HR burst into the office, breathless, a file clutched to her chest. Mr. Warren? She said, voice tight, I found something. 5 years of hiring data, consistent pattern, overqualified candidates rejected, especially Black and Latina women. Resumes marked not a cultural fit or simply ignored. And this, she opened the folder to a spreadsheet, shows inflated translation costs linked to Blake's niece's company. Triple market rates. No vetting. A long beat passed. Lucas flipped through the evidence, jaw clenched. His hands didn't shake, but his silence was louder than any outburst. Then the office door swung open. Blake didn't knock. Lucas, the Dutch team's ready to sign. There's some confusion about a few terms in the final Mandarin documents, but I think... Thomas, Lucas cut him off, voice calm but loaded. Close the door. Blake blinked, confused. Sorry? Close. The door. It clicked shut behind him like the seal of a vault. Warren stood, slow and deliberate, holding up a page from Chloe's file. $50,000. That's what we paid your niece's company for this conference's materials. For work so flawed, we nearly insulted an entire delegation. Blake's face drained of color. This is a misunderstanding. We hire qualified vendors. She has no credentials. The certification you provided? Fake. Chloe stepped forward, placing a printout on the desk. I confirmed it with Beijing Language Institute. They've never heard of her. Blake turned on her. Mark, you think this makes you important? You're just a cleaner who stumbled into a lucky moment. PhD in Applied Linguistics, NYU. 6 peer-reviewed publications, she replied evenly. And unlike you, I didn't hand public contracts to family. Warren's voice sliced through the room like glass. Thomas, I've called an emergency board meeting. Your resignation will be expected before it starts. You're not serious. Lucas looked at him, expression unreadable. Choose your next words very carefully. 2 hours later, the executive auditorium buzzed with unease. Every department head, every regional director, every cleaning supervisor, even Simmons, pale and silent, sat in rigid rows. In the front sat the international delegations, unaware of the storm they had helped uncover. On stage, Chloe stood beside Lucas Warren as he addressed the room. We uncovered a pattern of systematic bias and unethical contracting, he said, voice unwavering. Miss Chloe Bennett not only saved us from diplomatic disaster, she exposed a rot in our leadership that has gone unchecked for years. A presentation lit the screen behind him. Charts, names, resume qualifications cross-referenced with job titles. A clear, irrefutable pattern. Blake's inflated contracts, Simmons' internal rejection notes. The silence in the room turned heavy. Effective immediately, Thomas Blake has been terminated. Karen Simmons is suspended pending a full investigation. And we are launching a chain-wide audit of every hiring and promotion decision made in the last 5 years. In the back row, Maya wiped at her eyes quietly. Some of the cleaning crew applauded with trembling hands. Others simply sat in stunned silence, like someone had finally spoken aloud a truth they had all carried in secret. Warren turned to the crowd once more. I'm also proud to announce that Dr. Chloe Bennett will serve as our new Global Director of Multilingual Operations and Cultural Relations. The applause started uncertain, then grew. Chloe stood frozen for a moment, not because she didn't believe it, but because for the first time in 6 years, someone did. What would you do if you held the truth in your hands, but revealing it could cost you everything you've worked for? As Chloe stepped down from the stage, one message pulsed louder than any applause. The real reckoning hadn't ended. It had only just begun. See what happens next in part 3. 6 months later, the plaque on Chloe Bennett's office door read, Dr. Chloe Bennett, Vice President of Global Inclusion and Language Strategy. The 32nd floor of the Empire Grand offered a panoramic view of Manhattan, a city that had once swallowed her in anonymity. Now it bowed slightly at her presence. Her new office didn't smell of bleach or floor wax. It smelled of coffee, fresh paper, and quiet power. But what Chloe cherished most wasn't the title or the view. It was the folder on her desk, the Hidden Stars Initiative Final Report. One idea, born from years of rejection and silence, had become a corporate revolution. Over 147 underutilized employees had been identified across the company. Housekeepers fluent in Arabic, bellhops with MBAs, dishwashers who coded at night. 83% of them were Black, Latino, or Asian American. Internal promotions had soared. Translation expenses dropped by 78%. Guest satisfaction in international conferences rose over 40%. The metrics were undeniable, but it wasn't about numbers. It was about finally being seen. Chloe stood before the board and regional directors to present the final phase of her project. The next step is mentorship. Every newly promoted employee commits to identifying someone else, someone overlooked. We create a cycle of recognition, not silence. She paused, then added softly, because talent has never been the problem. Recognition has. Across the country, the ripple effect was tangible. Guests noticed smoother service, more culturally sensitive communication, a subtle but undeniable shift in the air. At one of the regional properties in Sacramento, a Filipino night auditor had been promoted after discovering fraud in billing records. In Miami, a Cuban-born dishwasher became the hotel's tech support lead after building an internal feedback system in his spare time. Even the old guard couldn't ignore it. Karen Simmons, once the feared housekeeping manager, now worked in a low-tier property in Fresno, demoted after the investigation. Her email signature no longer carried weight, and her once dominant voice now cracked with hesitation. She watched the broadcast of Chloe's presentation from a back office, fingers clenched around a lukewarm cup of coffee, silent and alone. Thomas Blake's fate was harsher. After legal review, several fraudulent contracts tied to his niece's company were exposed. Industry whispers ensured no luxury hotel chain would touch him. He now managed a roadside motel in Flagstaff, Arizona, night shift. Rumor had it, guests often complained about the poor Mandarin translations on the signs. Ashley Blake, the niece, had been forced to return the inflated payments. As part of her restitution, she completed a mandatory ethics program and was now, ironically, studying real Mandarin at community college, with financial aid from the Warren Foundation for Inclusive Language Education, founded after the scandal. Chloe had approved the scholarship application herself. One afternoon, as Chloe sorted through the final grant proposals for the company's new employee scholarship fund, a small envelope arrived on her desk. The handwriting was meticulous, formal. Inside was a postcard from Amsterdam and a letter written in Dutch. It was from Professor Meyer. "We've followed your journey with awe. Your courage in not just lifting yourself, but building a ladder for others is extraordinary. The Department of Applied Linguistics at the University of Amsterdam would be honored to have you as a visiting professor this fall." Chloe read the letter 3 times. She could still remember crouching behind a column in a housekeeping uniform, whispering Dutch into a phone, terrified and unseen. Now, the same university that had once been a far-off dream was asking her to teach, but the joy came laced with an ache that refused to soften. That night, she sat alone in her office, long after the building had emptied. The city glittered below. Her fingers hovered over her phone before finally dialing. The number was no longer active. Her mother had died 2 years earlier, a quiet, brilliant woman who had once cleaned hotel rooms while holding a college degree from Spelman. She had raised Chloe on stories of excellence in the face of invisibility. "They can't see you," she used to whisper, "but that doesn't mean you aren't worth seeing." She had died believing that the world wouldn't change, that doors stayed closed, that sacrifice meant silent erasure. Now, Chloe was living proof that her mother had been wrong. Or maybe, more painfully, that her mother had paved the way without ever getting to walk through the door herself. The next day, the company's internal network lit up with an announcement. The Bennett Rose Scholarship Fund, named in honor of Chloe and her late mother, would offer full academic sponsorships to employees and their children pursuing higher education. The first recipient? Ava Moreno, the daughter of a longtime housekeeper who had worked alongside Chloe for years. Ava dreamed of studying hotel management. She had once told Chloe, while folding towels, "I want to be the one running the place someday." Now she had a real shot. Later that week, during a staff Q&A streamed to all properties, someone asked, "What's been the hardest part of this journey for you?" Chloe hesitated only a second. Not the work, she said. Not the rejection or the humiliation or even the anger. The hardest part was carrying the belief that if I just worked harder, they'd notice. That merit was enough. But the truth is, systems don't fix themselves. They protect themselves until someone breaks through. Her voice cracked, just slightly. I don't want to be the exception. I want to be the start of something permanent. When the session ended, she turned off the lights in her office and stood by the window again, watching the city. Somewhere below, another invisible talent was clocking in, sweeping floors, serving coffee, filing papers. Maybe speaking fluent Japanese under their breath or holding a law degree no one cared to ask about. And maybe, just maybe, they'd get their call too. What part of this story stayed with you the most? Was there a moment that made you pause and reflect on your own experience? If this story moved you, comment 100 below. Tell us where in the world you're watching from. And if you believe stories like Chloe's matter, please share this video with a friend. Thank you for watching Life Stories.